Hello everyone, this is that concerned guy. For this clip, I would like to inform all of you um, some negative news in regards to the political news that is concerning for a number of people in the state of Victoria, Australia. People who are concerned about where the state of Victoria is heading in regards to in regards to social issues, demographical issues, and so forth. On the 24th of November, the state of Victoria had its state elections, and unfortunately, I have some bad news to tell you. And the bad news is the Australian Labor Party has won the Victorian State Elections. A landslide victory over defeating the Liberal Party, Australian Liberal Party, which is the centre-right party of Australia. And the Australian Labor Party is the centre-left party. Well, so-called centre-left party, but in reality it's gotten further down towards the more far left political leanings in regards to feminism, immigration, and all that sort of things. Now, how does this affect men and for the general public of the state of Victoria here in Australia? Well, it's just that the Labor Party in the state of Victoria has enabled the city of Melbourne, which is the capital city of Victoria. It has enabled the city to become even more of a SJW cesspool, where radical feminism and radical open border groups who want to let in more and more so-called refugees into the state of Victoria, particularly in Melbourne. Now, feminism. We all know it's gotten pretty bad in Western countries. So, in the state of Victoria, of Australia, feminism is now going to even become a much more aggressive force, in which more and more privileges for the baba'es, to not just the courtrooms, but also in the workforce, and also the schools, the mainstream schooling system in the state of Victoria, and how's this gonna affect not just men but also male students in schools, universities, and other tertiary institutions within the state of Victoria. And many of us know already that more women are studying in tertiary institutions, particularly in universities, compared to men. And unemployment is actually affecting more men in Victoria compared to women. But of course, yes, there is a gap in employment among women who become pregnant or who have become new new mothers who have to take care of the children, at homes temporarily until the kids are old enough to be sent to childcare centers. Now, childcare centers is a good thing for toddlers, whilst both parents working these days. More hours in the workforce and less time with the kids, less family time. This negatively affects the kids. Mentally, socially, And we know that toddlers, kids need quality family time for both the mothers and the fathers. It's epidemic that now that more kids are becoming more and more depressed or unsatisfied with their general lives compared to generations ago. And more boys and more men have grown up to become more and more uncertain about their role in societies and relationships with the baba'es. Now, this state election within the state of Victoria, Australia, Melbourne will become more and more SJW. It is getting worse and worse where you can't even say certain things anymore. They will brand you as a misogynist, racist, bigot, etc., etc., etc. It's sort of like it's becoming the equivalent to the coastal regions of California, such as Los Angeles and San Francisco. And with radical feminism getting its predator claws, grabbing onto every aspect of what the public sees. So the so-called domestics against women and all that stuff. But you rarely hear about male domestic violence against female domestic violence against men. No. If you mention that, you are labeled as a sissy, or a man who needs to man up. What can men say these days? Where is the raw truth? You can't say anything anymore. It is disheartening and hurtful that men who do suffer from domestic violence from the opposite sex, and not only that, there is a growing number of men who are becoming homeless, and the public housing system it now favors women over men, and that not just that, but the so-called refugee influx into the state of Victoria, particularly in Melbourne, where newly built public housing is not for the local citizens, not on men. It is for so-called refugees from certain African countries and the countries in the Middle East. How is this Australian? this is totally un-Australian. But yet, if you say this, then you're labelled, of course, as a bigot. Who cares about the men or the local citizens here in Australia who cannot get public housing, who have to live in their cars, or live on the beach, or live in the public parks, who cannot find shelter? And particularly that we discuss on men who may have lost their homes, lost their assets, and particularly getting out of relationships or marriage with a babae, who have taken most of the assets, the car, or the house. And where's the man gonna go? He has to live in his own car if he's still got one, if he still has one, a car, and he can't find a place to live. Basic housing. And that basic housing is preference to the so-called refugees. It's just only going to get worse in years to come. And it is a serious matter that we are facing. And the laws favors the babae over the men. And you can't say anything, certain things in the workforce. You can't say anything in schools that is slightly the truth about men who are suffering, men and boys in schools or the workforce or whatever. And it's getting to the point where political correctness is gonna snap itself. It's going to break. It's going to self-implode. And men will rise up and start speaking out. And it will be it'll be a cultural war against today's feminists, manginas, beta simps, versus the red-pilled men, or those men who had recently been awakened by today's institution of marriage and today's so-called multiculturalism, where refugees get preference of housing over Australian men, Australian citizens, male citizens. It is getting scary, very scary out there, and men cannot be maropok anymore. It is time to stand up and take back what's rightfully ours as men.